Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome. You're joining me today for another one of our live conversations in conversation with Changemakers. This is a series of chats that I'm doing, 20-minute chats with people who have come onto my radar, who are making waves, making changes, making a difference in the world of education, SEN, business. I'm croaky because I spent the weekend whooping and hollering at Hebden Bridge Burlesque Festival. So apologies if I'm a little bit like, that's why. Anyhow,
I am as well.
If you are watching live, someone's already here and they know the deal. Drop some angry emojis. That's good for the algorithm. Unless you are genuinely angry, in which case, I'm sorry your day isn't going so good. Here's hoping for a better day for you tomorrow. But I think it's Sharon, and Sharon knows the deal. Hi, Sharon. So if you're watching live, you want to give this a share, that would be lush. Let me know whether you're watching in my group on Facebook or on YouTube. And if you're watching on a replay, let me know that you're on the replay as well. Tell me where in the country you are or where in the world you are and when in the future you are. So today's guest is Jo Symes. Jo is the founder of Progressive Education. Jo does incredible work raising the profile of and making better opportunities in the space of alternatives to mainstream education, I guess we would call it. So we're going to have a little bit of a chat today about Jo and her work and where you can find her. And I just hope that you'll go and find her if you feel that she would be useful to you and make that connection, because our community is all about knowing who we know and connecting with the right people. Phoenix is watching us live on Facebook. Hi. Okay, so Jo, hello.
Hello.
Hello. So let's start as we always start. Do you want to give us a little bit of introduction and a bit of your background? Like just like top level stuff. You don't have to give us your life story. Don't worry. Just tell people a little bit about you and how you found yourself here today.
Okay, it is a bit of a long story, so I'll try and keep it brief. So I run Progressive Education, which is a website and associated social media platforms. And it's all about basically exploring alternatives to school and sharing initiatives to improve school as well. So I got into all of this through having my own kids and them going off to school. And I have to confess, before they went to school, I hadn't questioned the education system at all. I sent them to school without a second thought, and I was actually quite looking forward to it because I hadn't been back to work yet. I was looking forward to get back into work, making new friends. I was going to join the PTA and all of this. But yeah, it didn't go so well. My older son, actually, at the age of 4, I knew he wasn't ready. I just knew. So I started him part-time. So he just did mornings for the first kind of 6 weeks. And then the school started putting on the pressure for him to go full-time. So by the October half term, he was full-time, and it just kind of spiraled from there. He was super angry, anxious, unhappy. Yeah, I barely saw him smile. It was awful. But yeah, and it was that whole classic, he's fine here, home must be the problem. And so I was sent on a parenting course. He was sent off to the GP, psychiatrist, psychologist, went into CAMS and all of that. And no one was questioning the school system itself. And I jumped through all of those hoops. And it was only when my second son went to school 2 years later, and then it kind of freed up a bit of my time. And so I started helping at the school and finally kind of saw firsthand what they'd been trying to tell me, because my younger son also started having anxiety, and it was always a battle to get both of them in the mornings. We had bedtime problems because they didn't want to go to school the next day. So yeah, on the parenting course thing, I guess I was learning about kind of empathy and mutual respect and listening and all of this. And I just felt that the school sort of was at odds with that. And I just, didn't feel that was happening at school. So in the end, we deregistered. My older son was there almost 2.5 years, and we deregistered in year 2 for him in reception for the younger one, and started home educating. But then it was like panic stations. We'd never planned to do this. So I set up a Facebook group. It's called the Progressive Education Group. And that was, to connect with like-minded people, I guess, people on the same journey. And because all the people around me, my family, they were absolutely not on board with the idea of home education. I really had to battle to get my kids out of school. And so the group was really about trying to find this elusive compromise school that we could all agree on. And the group grew quite rapidly. So I knew I wasn't alone. And the group was all about exploring alternatives to mainstream schooling, and amazing resources were being shared, like TED Talks and articles, podcasts, blogs, and all of this. And so I just thought I needed to share the resources more widely. So then in 2020, I launched the website, and it has two aims. So one, it's about raising awareness of alternatives to school, and it sort of gives an overview of some of the different approaches like Montessori, Steiner, Forest School, Reggio Emilia, democratic self-directed education, online schooling, all the different flexi schooling, home education, all the different options. And there's a directory of progressive schools and learning communities, which started as UK, but now it's international. And then the other side of it is trying to raise awareness of initiatives to change the school system, because that's where most kids are. So it's like lobbying campaigns to bring about change, and initiatives that schools can get involved with to kind of try and improve the learner experience. So that's it.
You were one of those parents who, I think, like a lot of us, who find ourselves in that situation where, like you, I thought that my son would just go to school and I'd get a bit of my life back, and I'd maybe go back to work, and it would be a new chapter of our lives. Never for a second did I expect that wasn't going to work for him.
Yeah.
And then, like you, I think, and like lots of parents, I found myself in this position where the situation the choices we were making were not choices we would have made, like, without being in that position, if that makes sense. And I think that's a different proposition, isn't it, to if you have set out from the outset deciding that you're going to unschool or homeschool or take a different route. It's kind of like that. It's a different learning experience. It's a different journey for when that is brought to you through crisis, right? It looks different, and your experience is different, and you're probably bringing a lot more baggage to the table than maybe if you make that decision straight off the bat, which I think some of us in hindsight would probably go, well, I'd do that differently entirely now. But that's the way hindsight works, right? Do you find that?
Yes, definitely. And I think you don't have that support network. So if you always plan to home educate, probably you're surrounded by people that are like-minded. So you've already got your tribe. But if you're leaving the school system and everyone else thinks you're crazy, that can feel quite isolating. And I was definitely in that position, because actually the school that my kids went to, ironically, we'd actually relocated to this particular town for the outstanding schools. Outstanding. And lots of people flocked to this particular village for the outstanding schools. So most of those parents were very happy with the schooling. And so I was like the black sheep. And I felt judged, because actually I had a friend from my school days who had chosen to home educate. And I have to confess, like, I thought she was bonkers. Like, I was one of those people, I guess, that judged. I was the one saying, well, how are they going to socialize? And how are they going to possibly learn everything they need to know? And, I didn't, like, she's one of the cleverest people I know. Never did I stop and think, oh, why is she doing that then? And I didn't bother going down that journey and looking at the website she was looking at to get her to that point. So I sent them off to school, and then obviously it didn't work out. And then, but once you've seen it, you kind of can't unsee it.
I don't know if you had these experiences. So I've got lots of friends who are homeschoolers or unschoolers or home educators or variations thereof. A place where Theo was younger, when he was in primary, there was a great Montessori, a great Steiner school nearby, but it was never something it was just not on my radar. I had been very traditionally schooled, and I had that mindset of that's where you get the best education. And I found that when we were going through that period of flux where we weren't really sure what it was going to look like for him, like you said, your son had 2.5 years of trying school in various ways. We were in that. We were like fighting for an EHCP. We were trying different managed moves. We were going through alternative provisions. There was a bit of, and I don't think it was coming from those people, but I was putting it on myself. I would connect with people within the home ed community, and I felt like an outsider there as well, because I wasn't like all in. You know what I mean? I was a bit like, well, if you can't go to school, I guess this will have to do. But I wasn't really committed to it. And I think that I was probably giving off a bit of energy, and I was carrying a lot of shame and guilt and self-questioning around that. So I think a lot of families experience that too, right? When they rock up to home ed things and they don't feel like a proper home edder, because it hasn't been a choice in the same way as it is for other people, I guess.
Definitely. And there are lots of different types of home educators. You know, people tend to
Right,
lump
which you
them
don't know
together
before
as
you're in
being
that
one type
circle.
of person, but no, there's, you know, all sorts of different people like you get anywhere.
Yeah,
So yeah,
definitely.
it's quite hard to find your people. You've got to be so proactive.
Yeah.
And that's where I found Facebook, really. I had a personal profile before, but I was hardly ever on it. And then that's where I discovered, okay, if we need to home educate, you've got to be on Facebook. That's how you discover what's going on. And that's what gave me the idea to set up my own group.
Yeah. And when you say progressive education, how do you define that? What does that mean for you and your community?
That's a good question. With hindsight, I don't know if I would have chosen the word progressive education, because I didn't come from an education background. And so I didn't know progressive education was a kind of a thing. Like in America, they refer to progressive education as being kind of Montessori and Steiner type education. But for me, I use the dictionary definition. So it's all about challenging the status quo, looking to the future, progress, change, innovation, and improvement. So that's why I use the term. And I guess for me, it's about moving away from the status quo, moving away from this hierarchy with the top-down kind of all-knowing authoritarian teacher at the front and the young people being passive recipients of information, and moving towards more of a kind of flatter structure where there's more autonomy for the young people, agency, difference is celebrated rather than this kind of one-size-fits-all. And with more of a focus on more children's rights and social justice, mental health and wellbeing, and also life skills, like they talk about the 4 C's, collaboration, communication skills, critical thinking and creativity. So more of that stuff.
Yeah, I think that's really important, because I think what people maybe don't understand is that you're not swapping one thing for another thing. It's an entirely different approach, right? And the thing I really like about your work is that you're working like connecting families with providers and building those networks within the progressive education community. But then you're also like underpinning that with lobbying work and like kind of like persuasive PR work to try to challenge what's going on in mainstream education as well, right? Which is key, I think, because otherwise we're just going to see this even bigger divide. And I think what we were saying before, and I'm probably putting words in your mouth, but I'm good at that. Before we came on the call, you were saying that you are aware that not everyone has the privilege or the option to opt out of the system. And so it is really important that we do the work we need to do for those who choose to or need to stay in the system, right? What does that look like in your world?
Well, I'm raising awareness of the alternative in the hope that parents know what their choices are and they can make informed choices. But obviously, like you say, it's only a privileged few that are going to be able to access a lot of those alternatives. A lot of them, well, most of them are fee paying, and not everyone can do that. And it's really unfair. I guess through raising awareness of the pedagogies and the approaches, the hope is, well, I don't know how possible this is, but the hope is that it will influence mainstream. But having said that, you can be quite disheartened and think, well, Maria Montessori and Steiner and A.S. Neal from Summerhill, they set up their schools over 100 years ago, and what's changed? If anything, we're going the wrong way. So we can feel disheartened, but at the same time, now we have social media. And although sometimes I feel like the work I do is just a drop in the ocean, like if we're all a drop, and I've got nearly 10,000 people in my group, they're nearly 10,000 drops. You've got over 10,000 drops, and Naomi Fisher's got thousands, and Not Finding School and a Square Peg. If we come together, then we can be a river, Yeah. So I think there is hope, but yeah, it's absolutely about making this accessible to all so that everyone can make choices. And maybe that's what it's about. Maybe it's not about arguing over which approach is best. Should it be Montessori? Should it be self-directed? It's maybe about saying, okay, mainstream perhaps will always be there for those that want it. Maybe we shouldn't try and get rid of it, but we should aim and work towards having choice and all of the options being available to everyone.
And there's a lot that can be taken from progressive education settings and progressive education options that can really make a difference if applied in mainstream settings, right? So some of the approaches work for all children in all settings, regardless of whether that's in a mainstream or a small independent or an independent alternative provision. There are things that we know that are kind of good practice and well established across the alternative education sector that would make huge differences in mainstreams and would not necessarily be resource heavy. So it's that conversation, right?
Yeah. And I just think it's so sad that often, you know, sometimes you see a headline about a school who's like prioritizing mental health and well-being or student voice or something, and that's really seen as radical. Like, these things should be done by default. That's the really sad thing, because it can be easy.
Yeah, absolutely. So what is going on in your community at the moment then? I know you've got a few irons in a few fires. So give us an idea of what you're working on currently.
Yeah, so I'm running some webinars at the moment with my colleague, Alex O'Neill. She is the host of the Limitless Changemakers podcast, and we're running webinars for people that want to set up their own schools and learning communities. So they're running till August. We do a webinar every month. They've been going for over a year, actually, nearly 18 months. So that's very much the focus now, because I think it's difficult to change the system. It really is. And so if we can have more things going on outside of the system, maybe there's hope that those innovations can kind of influence mainstream. I think we need more going on outside the system to bring about the change. So that's that. And we hope to bring out a course later in the year as well for people that want to set up their own schools and learning communities. And also I need to update the website. So I need to get your stuff on there, because my kids don't have EHCP. So your stuff, the EOTAS stuff, wasn't really on my radar. So I need to get that on there and enhance the directory. So I've got new categories going on for online schools and hybrid learning. So I need to do that. Those are my main focuses.
Your directory is excellent. I was looking at the end of last week, I had a look, and like quite often people come to me and say, do you know of anything that does this in my area? And I'm like, not unless it's Kent, because Kent are in like full-blown crisis right now. I'm not really familiar with I'm not really familiar with a lot of the provisions like across the country, and like a directory like yours that lets people, because you can search by area, right, and you can search by type of provision as well, I think.
It's like a keyword search, so you can type in your area, and there's a map as well.
Amazing. And so for people who are, for EOTAS families, I think it's really good, because we do get that crossover between, I think that EOTAS families do kind of have a foot in each camp, really, where those of us who have formally EOTAS through an EHCP, usually we've still got a bit of a toe in the mainstream, or there's an expectation. When I say mainstream, I also mean specialist, but in state education. And then we're also kind of like straddling into like more bespoke learning packages for our young people, because that's what they need. And so I think your directory is really useful for people in that way. What exciting things are you seeing within the space, like within kind of what things are like? Because I know that things come in trends and there's buzzes and things. What are the things that people are excited about right now within progressive education?
I guess more people are aware that home education is a thing. I think when I first started, not many people knew that home education was even legal. So I think there's more awareness, probably because of COVID. So that's good. And also more and more people wanting to set up their own schools and learning communities. That's amazing. Like literally hundreds of people have joined my group wanting to do that. So that's why I'm focusing on that, because people, they're like me, they're desperate parents whose children need something different, but the something different doesn't exist. Like, my directory is okay, but to be honest, there aren't that many progressive settings around the country. There aren't, and we need more. So that's the good thing. So but they need the skills to know how to do it. Hence that's the webinars and the course.
That's super exciting. And what things get asked most in your group? What kind of things, when people come and find your group on Facebook, what do people come with? Like, I'm guessing they arrive, like they stumble in through the door exhausted and on their knees. I'm like, oh my God, help me. But what are the common themes that crop up for your community?
People looking for a suitable setting, like I was. The kids are either still in school and it's not going well, or they've just come out of school and they don't know what their options are and they can't find what they're looking for. And also relationship problems, because sometimes it's often the mums actually who see the knock-on effect of school and the impact that has at bedtime and drop off and pick up and all of that. And other family members don't see that. They're not as close to it. And therefore, they can be resistant to thinking about alternatives. So yeah,
it impacts the whole family, right? So if
Yeah.
you've got a child or a young person who has barriers to attendance or who is struggling in school, has a massive impact on all of the relationships and all of the interactions and all the dynamics in that household, especially when you layer on top of that not always, but often what goes hand in hand with that is some discovery around neurodivergence.
Yes,
And
definitely.
unpicking all of that.
Yeah.
You know, it's a lot, right? You know, like you've gone from thinking, yay, they're off to school, I'll get my life back, to, oh my God, this looks nothing like I thought it would. Nothing like.
That's the next thing I'd like to do, actually. Once I've done the course for startups, I'd really like to offer some sort of support group for parents going through this, because it's all very well having the facts and the figures and the information about where their children can go, but what about the emotional support for the parents? I think
it's huge.
Yeah,
we've got lots of parents who are, I'm sure in your community too, who are like, if it wasn't for communities like yours and like ours, we would all be in a lot of trouble, because we need people who have those shared terms of reference and who understand where we're coming from, and who, you know, that's what we do in the Marble Run, and I think that's what you do in your group, that we don't have to explain ourselves to, and we don't have to be justifying, and we don't have to be doing those what about socializing, what about GCSEs conversations.
Yeah, definitely.
So what are you excited for next? Like what gets you up in the morning? What gives you that fire in your belly?
I love all of my work. Just I love running the group. I love the community aspect. I love it when someone has a question and I can signpost them off to wherever's going to be helpful. I love doing my newsletter. There is a bit of doom and gloom in the newsletter, I have to say. Various reports always coming about, but mental health crisis and schools, you know, all of that. But there's a lot of good stuff as well. And I shine a light on a lot of changemaker projects and things that make a difference. So yeah, I love all of that.
I really love that before we came on the call, you said, you know, this is a work in progress. This is certainly we're not at our final destination. And I think that it's really, I always used to think that you had to be like out the other end, properly have all your shizzle together before you could help other people. I don't believe that anymore, actually. I think if you are 1 or 2 steps ahead of other people, you can be helpful to other families.
Yeah.
Or if you've got a little bit more information than other people, you can be helpful to other families. And I think too often, I'm really passionate about this, and this is why I like speaking to people like you. I think we have such a wealth of knowledge within the parent community that you just do not get from people who have not experienced the things that our families have experienced. And I would love to see more platforming. That's what these series is about, but also more kind of like genuine respect and spotlighting on parents who have gone through this and have had people help them during the process. And then when they are a little further on, they're able to reach back and bring other families with them, because I think that's where the power is, and that's where the change happens. I'll get all evangelical about it, but yeah, thank you for doing the work that you do. I think it's really, really important and exciting and full of hope and full of truth about, you know, this is not a final destination by any stretch of the imagination. None of us are completely out of the other end, you know. And I know that people sometimes say, it's all right for you, your son's going to university now. Oh yes, that's going to be a whole new adventure. And I'm fully confident that there will be some excellent webinars born out of that experience that will help other families. And that's what kind of, it's nice to be able to be in that position, right? When you can kind of think, how can I use this to help other people?
Yeah, that's what I love. And I think it's not about necessarily being an expert. I definitely don't class myself as a thought leader or expert. What I love doing is signposting and putting people in the right direction and bringing the right people. Like often I get emails, what should I do about this? I'm like, well, I don't know, but I know this person will know. And so
being the person that can filter. Yeah, exactly. And that thing about being, you know, to be the expert, you've only got to know more than the average person in any space to be considered useful in that respect. So thank you so much for the work that you do. We will make sure that people are kept abreast of what you've got going on. If you want to find out more about Jo and her work, go to progressiveeducation.org. You can find signposting for her Facebook group there. She's on all the socials. You can also find links to the webinars that she mentioned. And I think she has a mailing list you can sign up to, so that if you are interested in finding out more about setting up your own alternative learning environment or school, that will be coming shortly. So thank you so much for the work that you do. Stay on with me. I'm going to end the stream and then we'll say goodbye offline. But thank you to everyone who watched, and thank you to everyone who's commented along. And let me know if you made it to the end of the replay. See you all later. Bye.